Here at the Pirate Parlay Podcast on the Sick Podcast Network. I'm your host, JC Allen, and today we're going to go behind enemy lines, and we're going to look at this Chiefs team. There's a lot of trepidation when playing this Chiefs team. I know it lulls you in. Patrick Mahomes hasn't been Patrick Mahomes. We'll get into all of that with our special guest here to break down what's going on with Patrick Mahomes. But that defense is legit. The Bucs are coming off a brutal loss to the Falcons. The Chiefs are undefeated. We'll get into all that. Can the Bucs be their kryptonite? Can Todd Bowles deliver up a game plan like he did in the Super Bowl to shut down this offense of the Kansas City Chiefs? We'll find out that and more once we come back after the break.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Pirate Parlay.
Battle intercepted, picked off in the end zone. Bucs are going to beat the Chiefs. We're the champions of the world.
The sickest Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. It's going to be sick.
What is up? Back on the other side here, we're going to get into some Bucs Chiefs talk. And to do that, I've got a special guest from behind enemy lines, as we do on this preview show. We've got Jordan Foote, deputy editor of Chiefs on Sports Illustrated. He's going to come in and break down everything Chiefs, Bucs before this matchup, what's going on, all of the information that you guys need before this game, because you guys are well-versed in the Bucs. Oh, you should be watching the show, reading their stuff. Should know everything about the Bucs. Let's learn about the Chiefs. Welcome on, Jordan Foote.
How's it going, man?
Jordan, thanks for coming on. It's like we're part of the same group here at Sports Illustrated, so we gotta promote each other, have each other's back. But how you doing?
I'm good, man. Excited to be on. It's a good time to be covering, I think, both of those teams. And Tampa, I'm very, very interested to see how the rest of the season goes for them, because I don't want to call it a crossroads, but I mean, anytime you're losing two big-time players on offense like that, and the defense not quite what it was when the Chiefs were facing the Bucs in the Super Bowl, needless to say, interesting team, definitely, for sure.
We'll start it right off the bat. We're getting trolled right away. They're a Chiefs guy. Is it are you a referee?
Oh, man. Undercover. I have the zebra uniform in the background.
That's great. So let's just jump into it, because this Chiefs team is 7-0. We look at the defense, top 5 in most categories you want to be top 5 in, and then the offense struggling. Let's start with that side. What's going on with the offense? Doing just enough to get by. Had a couple of high-scoring games for the most part. They're doing just enough to get by. What's up with this offense this year? Is it just the wide receivers, or is it underlying issues?
Yeah, man, it's been a lot, and it kind of reminds me of last year. And last season, I think a lot of it was because of the lackluster talent at wide receiver. A lot else was going right for the most part. Mahomes was playing a little bit better, but still, I caught a little bit of flack last season because I was like, man, this is, the unanimous head and shoulders best quarterback in the league, but the offense isn't, performing like it. To start this season, Hollywood Brown going down in the preseason opener. He's out for probably the rest of the regular season, if not maybe a playoff game. They're optimistic he'll come back at some point. Then Rashee Rice getting hurt with friendly fire from Patrick Mahomes. Isaiah Pacheco going down. The left tackle situation has been murky, to say the least, I think. Travis Kelce being in and out of the game plan, it seems. Juju Smith-Schuster getting hurt. So all of that. Then you add on Patrick Mahomes early in the season, making some really uncharacteristic mistakes and pressing, making bad decisions, poor footwork. He's played better over the past few weeks, I think, and has looked more like himself. But for a while there, man, it was rough. The red zone offense was bad. And I think there's a larger convo to be had when you don't create explosive plays. And the Chiefs are like bottom 5 in that, and they have been all year. Your offense is out there more. You're more susceptible to turnovers. You're more susceptible to penalties. You're more susceptible to the red zone drives being tougher. And they felt all of that. So you add everything together and you have an offense that's, still top half in the league, top 10, top 12, whatever you want to call it. But definitely not the typical Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes type offense.
Yeah, you look at it, they're still, again, as you mentioned it, right outside the top 10 in total offense. They're at 11 in total offense, averaging 348 yards per game. 11th in passing offense, 225.9 yards per game, only 8 touchdowns on the season, and we'll get into that there. but they've got a total of 19 team touchdowns. A lot of that coming in the running game, where they are 14th, but there's 10 of them there. Obviously, the defensive touchdown as well. 122 yards per game they're averaging there. But scoring offense is in the top 10 as well. 24.7. So everything that makes up the Chiefs team that you're used to is there. The biggest thing that's down is red zone offense, which they're only converting at 51.9% a clip, good for 23rd in the league. And Travis Kelce just gets his first touchdown of the year last week. But one thing that makes them so dangerous, again, is their ability to convert on third down. They're the second in the league, right behind the Buccaneers at number one, with a 50.5% third down conversion rate. I guess the question there for all that stats and information for everyone who's listening is, what's up with Patrick Mahomes?
Early in the season, he was just he was making really bad decisions, and that compounded a little bit. They were resulting in turnovers. He was overthrowing guys. He was just trying to force it a little bit, I think. The pocket presence was bad, and he's had stretches over his career where he either drops way too deep, like 15 yards, where I don't care who your offensive tackles are, they're going to get beat no matter what when your quarterback's dropping that far. Or he would take his head down and take his eyes away, get happy feet, and bail. And you just saw he looked very, very beside himself, uncomfortable, not settled in. They started a rookie left tackle weeks 1 and 2, benched him late against the Bengals, then switched over to the guy from last year who played, just under half the season, wasn't very good. That's still a work in progress. So all of that, plus the personnel changing, plus, the defense still being really, really, really good, but maybe not quite the absolutely overwhelming good that it was last year. The margin for error just a little bit lower. So Mahomes himself is not blameless. And I think that it's easy, at least in Kansas City, to brush a lot under the rug when he has a bad game. But he had, 4 or 5 of those in a row. Then there was a conversation, okay, what does he need to improve on? They come out of the bye week. Red zone offense is better. They lean on the running attack a little more. Mahomes looks better. The Raiders stat line was still not very good for the most part, but watching, he was extending plays very well, looking comfortable, ripping the ball. So I think they're ascending, and I think they'll get healthier over the season. But for a while there, man, it was tough sledding, and Mahomes definitely played a part in that.
Yeah, you look at it, 68.4 completion percentage. That's not something we're used to with Mahomes. He's been sacked 12 times on the season, and lost, as you mentioned, those deep dropbacks. He's lost 70 yards on sacks, which that's quite a bit. The 8 touchdowns, that's where you're looking at. And then you jump over to interceptions, 9 interceptions. I think that's where people are saying, okay, where is Mahomes? He's known for his prolific passing attack. 9 interceptions is tied for the league with Baker Mayfield, coincidentally. So both of these guys throwing a lot of interceptions, trying to force it, trying to get things to happen. They're both tied right there in interception. So when you look at kind of what Mahomes has been able to do, there's been years where it hasn't been, everything's been gravy, and they've still been really competitive. You look towards even last season, 27 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. Again, not the big wide receiver threats there, but they win the Super Bowl. So what do you kind of throw those numbers to the side. 2019 was another down year, 26-5, 5 interceptions, but only 26 interceptions. And you only say only 26 touchdowns because of the 50, the 38, the 37, the 41. Sure. So I guess the question here is looking at Mahomes really kind of last year with the 27-14 and kind of looking at his start this year. Is there worry at all that this is the start of a trend, a downhill trend? We know Mahomes has said, I don't care about the stats. I care about the wins. But at the same time, what are we looking at? Are we looking at a trend, or just kind of they need wide receiver help as soon as possible to get this guy back to what his numbers used to look like?
Yeah, no, I don't want to say it's impossible that he ever gets to that 50 touchdowns again, but I think he really set himself up for a lot of these conversations when he comes out of the gate year one. And I think part of that also, they had Tyreek Hill, they had probably peak Travis Kelce. He was new to it. Defenses had not adjusted yet with the too high stuff that they started implementing a couple years later. He had 2022, I think, though, he can replicate that when he had, 41 touchdowns and had a bleep ton of passing yards and all that stuff. Played really well. Juju was his number one wideout that year, and they just had really good depth, and Kelce was still Kelce. So it's a very weird conundrum that we try to figure out every week here in Kansas City. Like, why does the best quarterback in the league have more interceptions than touchdowns? And I think on one hand, and I'm not the biggest Pro Football Focus fan. I'm not trying to alienate anybody that is, but they track like the turnover worthy plays and all that stuff. He only has like 7 of them, but he has 9 picks. And you're like, okay, well, Juju dropped the ball that got picked off. There was another one that got deflected last week. He's had a couple more weird ones that aren't necessarily on him, but still at the end of the day, you can run. Yeah. You can run in the red zone. You can have a defensive touchdown. You can have your special teams put you in good spots. Still, no matter how you slice it, 8 touchdowns out of the number one quarterback when Baker has 21. Jordan Love, when he's played, has been really good. Joe Burrow's playing really well. Josh Allen has a lot. Aaron Rodgers is up to like 15, I think. Granted, he played on Thursday night. Guys out there are still finding ways to get the ball in the end zone. The Chiefs' problem, I think they're second in success rate. The ADOT is just absolutely terrible. There's no explosiveness in the pass game. They're relying on the run more than I ever thought an Andy Reid offense would. They're basically playing like a 1990s like Smash Mouth type football. And it's working for them, but I think until they have the elite talent, like if they would have started the year with Rice, Hollywood, and Worthy, maybe the numbers go up. But right now they're just kind of making do with what they have, I think.
And then, he's running a lot more than I think he has in recent years too. You look at, his high for last year was 389 yards, and that was a career high for him. This year he's already at 139 yards rushing, only 7 games in. So I think, there's some level of concern there potentially that, hey, he's exposing himself. And when he does, the Bucs defense has got to be on lock when they see him try to take off and run the ball. So, speaking of that running attack, Isaiah Pacheco's down. You got Carson Steele, and they re-signed Kareem Hunt, who they originally released because this is Sparta, kicked somebody on an elevator, I believe it was, a while back. But the rushing offense hasn't been, I wouldn't say it's been tremendous. No. But they are averaging 122 yards per game, which is good for like middle of the pack, getting 10 touchdowns in the season. As far as a running attack, what seems to be their kind of recipe over there? Again, knowing that Mahomes is running a lot more than he needs to or should probably be running. What's kind of happening all with the run game over there?
They have used Kareem Hunt just like they were using Isaiah Pacheco, plus like 20%, like well over 20 carries in 3 straight games. When he first came back and I think had like 14 carries or something against the Chargers, I said, man, Kareem Hunt has some juice. Like, he looks healthy. He looks good. That's kind of gone now. Now that he has, pushing 100 carries, I don't think he looks as fresh. He's had a hip injury last week, a quad injury this week, but returned to full participation on Friday, which is good for him. He's only averaging 3.7 yards per carry. Like, and someone posted, I wish I remembered the account, the graph of like explosive run rate versus negative run rate. Kareem Hunt's not going to have negative runs, but he definitely is not going to give you the chunk plays. So it's a bunch of 2-yard runs, 4-yard runs, a 3-yard run, maybe a 6 and a 7 in there. And the Chiefs keep moving the chains because that's what they're really good at. They can eat up the clock. All the things that basically teams would try to do against the Chiefs in recent years is what they're doing now on offense. Keep control of the clock, capitalize at the end, run the football, try to keep the ball on the ground as much as you can. It's working. I don't think long-term it's what they want to do, and Pacheco should be back in 3-ish weeks, I want to say, coming back from that fractured fibula. A lot of Kareem Hunt, not much Carson Steele after he's had some ball security issues. And then they have Samaje Perine as well as Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Edwards-Helaire has been a healthy scratch every game since he's gone off the NFI. So expect a lot of cream hunt, a lot of runs up the middle, not a lot of outside zone or anything that the Chiefs usually go for because they know what they have and they're just kind of going with whatever cream hunt can do.
And the Bucks fans will love to hear that because Vita Vea will be there like
He's
a Journey
insane.
song with open arms. So before we move on to the defensive side, I do want to ask about Travis Kelce. Again, I mentioned just got his first touchdown last week. Looks like he's leading the team in receptions and yards. So, I mean, he's got that going for him, but he hasn't looked as his age. Finally, I mean, people forget he's the same age as Gronk. Is it the age or is it Taylor? Which one is catch for me? My wife's name is Taylor. I certainly know it's Taylor for me, not the age. I'm still young at heart. But is it the age or what's going on with Travis Kelce? Why is he slowing down?
Man, I think athletically, and you can tell him, they ran a screen pass last week against the Raiders and he immediately got stopped. I'm like, he cannot create the initial get upfield and get going. He doesn't have the shimmy move anymore that he used to. He can still get open, and he has been getting open. The tape still shows a guy that can be, a top 3-4 tight end in the NFL. In the postseason, he was absolutely nuts. He looked nothing like he did all regular season. He doesn't look banged up. He hasn't been on the injury report. He claims to be totally healthy. So I think there is a little bit of aging there, but I still think that, man, he's at the top of his game. He's still, I'd say, an elite tight end. He's not the overwhelming force that he once was. The Chiefs offense itself, Mahomes has not been quite as in sync with him as he usually is. So part of it's quarterback, part of it's game plan. They've tried to have him on a pitch count as much as possible. I'm very interested to see. The Chiefs last year set this insane precedent where if you would have asked me on January 1st, is this Chiefs team going to win the Super Bowl? I'd start laughing and say, heck no, man. Like, they just didn't have enough firepower. Then when the games actually mattered, they completely turned it up a notch. Kelce turned back the clock. Mahomes played mistake-free football. It's very, very hard to replicate that, I think. And eventually, I'm a believer that the bad process will catch up with you and sandbagging will kind of catch up with you. But they're getting by. I mean, that's the theme of the season. I think Kelce coming off a good game. He's had a couple in the last 3 or 4. So athletically, not the same. Talent-wise, I think still there, but definitely no longer going to have, 3, 4, 100-yard games in a row by any stretch.
I lied too. I got one more question about the offense, and then we'll move to the defensive side. The offensive line. Obviously, we know they had former Buccaneers left tackle Donovan Smith there last year. They did not bring him back. They've got a plethora of guys over on that side of the ball who are just absolute dogs. And Creed Humphreys, in the right guard there. I can't think of his name. But
Smith and Tooney at the guard.
Trey Smith, Joe Tooney. But Wanya Morris came in and took over at left tackle. And you have Jawan Taylor over he bounced around before he landed with you guys. What's the tackle positions look like? Because we know that interior is solid.
Yeah, Taylor, Chiefs fans and even some Chiefs media have jumped back and forth on him. I think multiple things can be true where he's been really, really, really good in pass protection, which obviously in the Chiefs offense is huge. He's been good in run blocking, but he also has a penalty problem, and that was something that plagued him all of last year. When he's not being penalized, he's been absolutely worth the contract. There have been games, though, where he's had multiple, and it's come back to bite him. So Taylor overall good, with a small caveat. The left side, though, I don't know, man. It's been bumpy. And the problem is Kingsley Suamataia, they drafted him in the 2nd round back in April. All offseason kind of pitched him as the starting guy, looked good in the preseason, looked okay in week 1, got baptized by Trey Hendrickson week 2. Just absolutely terrible performance. Had 4 pressures, a couple penalties, looked frazzled, got benched late in the game for Morris. Morris comes in, and instead of getting better over time, he has struggled more over time. And on Sunday against the Raiders, had the same amount of pressures as Suamataia did in week 2. He had 4 penalties, and 2 of those were back-to-back. He looked worse than the rookie did week 2. And this week, Andy Reid kind of doubled down on Morris being the guy. I think that the rookie has a higher ceiling. I think he's a better athlete. This would make sense to be a time to throw him back out there. But the Chiefs are rolling with Wanya Morris, and as long as he doesn't face a Hendrickson or a Max Crosby or a guy like that, he'll be okay. But man, he left tackle is definitely the weak link on that offensive line.
So some opportunities for the Bucs guys, Joe Tryanchenko, Chris Braswell. Maybe if they throw Yaya Diaby over there, good to know. I'm going to just real quick thank our sponsors real quick, and then we'll get on the defensive side of the ball. First of all, I'd love to thank Tampa Bay Buccaneers Cruise. Guys, I've been telling you about it. Tristan Wirfs, he has been announced. I let it slip a couple weeks ago if you saw that, but he's been announced. He'll be on the cruise. So super fun. They've also got a couple other surprises as well. Brad Johnson, Trey Palmer, Graham Barton, Luke Gedeke, very offensive line heavy with Kalijah Kancey on there, Yaya Diaby, so many more, Jamel Dean, Trey Palmer, Rashad White, so many more players that are going to be on there. It's from March 7th to 10th, out of Fort Lauderdale, hits down to Key West, goes over to Bimini, and then back to Fort Lauderdale. Quick little 3-day cruise. Drinks package included, Wi-Fi included, everything's included. It's such an unforgettable vacation. I'm still thinking about mine. I can't wait for this next one. I'll be there. A couple other media outlets will be there. So it's awesome time to meet us, including a whole bunch of fans from all over the country. So many different events that they have is sail away party, trivia contest, bingo, cocktail parties, player panels, a water volleyball game competition with the players, theme parties to keep the cruise going all night long. Don't miss this awesome opportunity to celebrate your team and create lasting memories with fans and your favorite Bucs players out on the ocean. Such a fun thing. More teams are starting to do it. So definitely again, Christmas is right around the corner. Tickets sales close December 11th. It's an awesome gift to bring your son, your wife, your significant other, your family, whatever you're thinking. Check it out. It's a great time, one that you will not be sorry that you went for. I'd also like to thank our one of our partners too at FanGo Tickets. FanGo is your number one source for live events in Tampa Bay. They are locally owned, which is awesome, especially after the hurricanes. It's important that we support these small businesses, local businesses as well. So definitely check out FanGo Sports while I try to find my read for it. But we just did a contest with them last week. Where we gave away free tickets to the Creamsicle game. There were club tickets too, so pretty awesome spot there. But if you're tired of getting blitzed by big ticket companies, turn to FanGo, your exclusively locally owned and operated Tampa Bay ticketing partner that offers fans like you full transparency. They prioritize fair pricing and no hidden fees, so Tampa fans can enjoy events without unexpected costs. Visit FanGoTickets.com for unbeatable prices, personalized seat selection, local partnerships that will take your game day to the next level. Awesome stuff. They literally show you how much they're making, the taxes, and the ticket prices you're paying for. They're in partnership or getting to be in partnership with a bunch of different local restaurants and stuff like that. So you can literally book your entire night at one spot. Reservations, deals on food and drinks, parking. They're eventually going to work hotels into that. So you can literally book everything, one-stop shop. It's going to be awesome. Definitely check it out. Jump into the defensive side of the ball because I feel like this is where the Chiefs have really dominated. I'll go through where their rankings are right now, but they are the number 5 ranked defense in the league. 295 yards allowed per game, 13 touchdowns. Passing defense is where I think that the Bucs might be able to find some success. They're 17th with 212 yards per game and 9 touchdowns. And then if you look at rushing defense, Bucs faced this 2 weeks ago. Ravens were allowing 59 yards per game. Now they're up to 69, partially because of the Bucs. Chiefs are right behind him in the number 2 spot, allowing 82.3 yards per game and 4 touchdowns. Their scoring defense has been one of the best in the league, top 5, only allowing 17.6 points per game. Then their red zone defense has been another strong suit. Again, top 10 here, 47.8% of the time they're allowing teams to convert, not that much. And their third down defense, again, one of the best in the league, 12th in the league, 34.9%. What's Spags doing that's got this defense playing on top of their head? Because if you look at the depth chart, obviously you've got the Chris Jones. Obviously, there's some other guys who, if you play football, watch football, you pay attention, their names. Trent McDuffie, a all pro candidate, all pro player, Chris Jones, and then maybe Nick Bolton is someone. But the rest of these guys, you look at them, and unless you're a diehard Chiefs fan, or you watched them in the Super Bowl recently, some might like trigger memories, but they're not household names. What's he doing to get this defense play like this?
He's nuts, man. Like, I think he Hall of Fame caliber defensive coordinator. He has the hardware to back it up. Like, Steve Spagnuolo was just insane. He says it every year, but I think now that he's had mostly the same players for a few years now, it's kind of ringing true. It's not a one offseason system. And when he first came in, we saw that, and the Chiefs struggled for 10 weeks, and then after that they finally got it and it clicked. Justin Reed has talked about that, where he came in, didn't really get everything until week 16 or 17 of that season. He has so many different looks that he throws at people, so many blitz packages, so many different schemes on the back end that he'll throw at you, but also regardless of personnel, he'll say bleep it and just go cover 2 man and man up on you and get physical in coverage, and then have a exotic blitz off the back end. Linebacker Willie Gay left in the offseason. I think that they lost a lot of athleticism with that, at least initially, but Leo Chanel, who they drafted in the 3rd round a few years ago, has emerged into like a chess piece. They'll line him up at defensive end. They'll have him be the Sam linebacker. They haven't truly experimented with him as a dime set, but they have a lot of defensive backs that'll do it. It's the combination of the mastermind pulling the strings. Nick Bolton, limited athlete, limited player, like it is true, but knows where to be all the time. Very smart, like a coach on the field, the typical Mike linebacker that would have just been dominant in the 90s, I think, like a throwback style of player. They have Drew Tranquil, good athlete. Chanel is good. Chris Jones on the interior, when they paid him, even I was like, man, it's a lot of money for a guy who's going to be 30. He's an interior rusher. Like, I don't know, has been just as good, if not even a little bit better than he was last season. Tershawn Wharton has emerged on the interior as a guy that was really a role player before this year, and not a great run defender, but he's been phenomenal overall. The back end, Trent McDuffie picking up where he left off is, I guess, probably top 5 cornerback at this rate, really playing well. Got healthy on the back end. The caveat to that, Jalen Watson has suffered a long-term injury, so I think the cornerback 2 spot is something that the Bucs can really exploit. And it sucks because you don't have the Chris Godwin to the Mike Evans this week, and that would have been a perfect kind of matchup to take advantage of. But the Chiefs against the pass, susceptible against running backs in the flats, susceptible against tight ends. I think Kate Otten could have a pretty good week. I think the Chiefs were like 5th this season in fantasy points given up to tight ends. So the run defense, though, man, absolute surprise. That has always been the Achilles heel of the Chiefs, and because the offense has historically been good, it doesn't matter because teams just abandon the run and will throw. This season they've played a lot of good running backs, even week 1 with Derrick Henry. I mean, they got challenged out of the gate. It's kind of withstood the test of time. So I expected a loss or a step back when L'Jarius Sneed got traded, but even with that, you're going from top 3 defense to, like you said, top 10. And when you combine that with a decent to good offense, you have a chance in a lot of games.
Yeah, so let's work our way back from the secondary, and then we'll get to Chris Jones and what he can do to take over a game. I think we'll save him for last. Save the worst for last in this case, or the best if you're looking at it from your point of view. But what jumps out at me is the Chiefs only have 4 healthy cornerbacks coming into this game. Yep. Now, whether they promote somebody from their practice squad or whatnot is whatever. Trent McDuffie, he won his he was honored with his All-Pro as a nickel cornerback. He's doing a little bit more outside as well this season for you guys. Who's filling that nickel corner role when he's out on the outside? And what can because the Bucs love to utilize those guys in the slot and get them some good matchups. Who's that guy and what's it looked like?
Yeah, so they had last year safety Brian Cook got hurt. I think it was week 12 or week 13 against Green Bay. And then Shamari Connor, who they took in the 4th round, stepped in as safety number 2 and played alongside Justin Reed in the secondary. With Sneed gone, Steve Spagnuolo said, I'm just going to, stick with the same thing. McDuffie can shadow opposing wideouts, even with the size mismatch. He's still been really good at that. And on the inside, Connor has shifted into more of the full-time slot role, and the Chiefs have boundary guys. Watson was one of them. Joshua Williams and Najee Johnson, who is dealing with a concussion right now, pretty much like strictly outside guys. Chris Roland Wallace, more of a slot, but they have the ability. Connor, he has a lot of pros and cons to his game. He's a heat-seeking missile, but that also comes back to bite him because he will absolutely whiff on some tackles and give up big plays, but he'll make the game-changing ones. He has a nose for the football. He always plays really hard. So not the most fluid athlete, I think. And if you had like a guy who could route somebody up from the slot, you could give him some trouble. But I would expect Connor to be pretty much the full-time guy on Monday night.
Now, for my own selfish reasons, I'm going to ask about Jaden Hicks. Loved him in the draft process.
Yes.
Desperately wanted the Bucs to grab him. They went with Tyke Smith, who's worked out pretty well for the Bucs, I'd say. Again, we'll get into injury report in a little bit, but full participation, clock 5 white, but still has to pass concussion protocol. So we'll see if he plays. He's got 2 more days to do it before the Bucs head out on Sunday afternoon. But how has he looked? Is he the player who I thought he was going to be? Has he seen the field, or is he mostly playing special teams? Talk to me about Jaden Hicks.
That's the problem. He just there's so many decent players on defense and in the safety room. He just doesn't have anywhere to play. And like Justin Reed has come off a couple times in game. He's been battling like a weird hand and wrist thing pretty much all season where he'll pop off for a play and Hicks will just randomly show up. I mean, he makes plays when he's out there. Like he's getting, a max of 10 snaps a game on defense, and he's always made a really good impact on there, but has been really a core 4 special teamer. Now, with that said, in the preseason looked absolutely like the player that we both thought. I mean, I was a big fan of his too coming into the draft. Looked great. And then the coaching staff loves him. I mean, just how he carries himself, how quickly he's understood everything, trying him out at the slot, trying him out as a solo deep safety, having him in the 2 high shells, like doing a little bit of everything. They like him a lot. They had an area scout come out right after the draft was over for that day and said, I have no clue how he slid this far. It's just like an abomination that he was available because guys like that should not go off the board in round 4. And while he hasn't been able to prove it so far for the most part, he does have an interception. He does have a couple really nice plays on defense. So simultaneously, yes and no. I think that next year, if Reed, moves on and they have to move some pieces around, that 2025 will be the year of Jaden Hicks probably.
So my question for you is, we talked about the defensive ratings here. They are kind of struggling in pass defense, 17th, middle of the pack, I would say. What's been the biggest thing that has been detrimental for them when it comes to the passing game? How have teams been able to take advantage of them? Has it been yards after catch? Has it been balls going over their head? Has it been tackling? What has been the Achilles heel when it comes to their ability to, kind of give up some yards in the passing game?
A lot of problems in the short and outside range. I think they're not getting, eaten up in the middle of the field. It's been like I kind of hinted at a little bit earlier, when you have a tight end that can run like a little leak route and get Nick Bolton on the move, or Drew Tranquill was really getting off to a slow start to the season. Isolating Justin Reed and man coverage has not been great. And then running backs too. Like if you're running a swing route to the running back or a Texas route where he's cutting inside, like anything where you're dumping it off, so to speak, to somebody, that's been an issue, and teams have kind of taken advantage of that. But I think moving forward, it's going to shift from that to that second cornerback spot. Like I think the panic meter is like at a 6, maybe a 6.5 with it. Because Watson came out of nowhere, so to speak, and had a really, really, really promising start to the year. For as good as he's been, Joshua Williams has been that bad, and Najee Johnson coming off the torn ACL has been pretty close to that. Johnson still in concussion protocol, was a limited participant on Friday. That's the area I think that you would target, but obviously with Tampa's injuries, I would keep feeding K-Dot, and I'd if Bucky Irving can play, get him out there, get Rashad White. I was a Sun Devil for a year, so big fan of his game, and just keep attacking there.
Okay, so that kind of brings me to that next question is, the middle of the field for them. You've already kind of talked about Drew Tranquill, his kind of ability to move around a little bit. Nick Bolton, more of that guy who's not going to be asked to do a lot in space. And when he is, you can find some mismatches. Leo Chenal, just talk about that trio of linebackers. Obviously, they're in a 4-3 front, but they also will play a lot of, nickel and stuff like that. Who's coming off? Is it one of the linebackers coming off? Is it one of the defensive linemen coming off for you guys? Because you're in that 4-3, so you don't have outside linebackers to get the pressure. And who's coming off the field when you guys go to your nickel stuff?
They've insisted on even down to the dime keeping Bolton out there a lot, and I have a couple of reservations with that every once in a while with the coverage, but Chanel's emergence has really allowed them to be extremely versatile. And Spagnuolo will have the NASCAR package, he'll have like the bear fronts, the different variations he has of the 3-3-5 he'll run out there, like it just insane combinations of I'm going to put this guy at defensive end. I'm going to run Tranquil on a random blitz. He even unleashed McDuffie on one last week that really hasn't happened much all season since he's been on the outside. So it's hard to pin down one thing that Spagnuolo's doing, but Chanel against heavy teams will naturally get some more reps, and Tampa seems to run a lot of 11 personnel, so I don't know if this is going to be a huge game for him. But if you're staying heavy out there, they'll match that personnel. If you're getting out and spreading wide, he'll come off the field. Bolton every once in a while will come off, and Spagnuolo tinkers in games. So sometimes you'll have a tendency that he goes to. Then after a drive or two, the Chiefs defense starts really slow and you'll see him completely abandon it. So I hate giving that answer, but Spagnuolo is such a sicko in a compliment term that it's really hard to tell what he's going to do.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, you see the creativeness, and everyone who talks about him has nothing but glowing things. A lot of what that secondary and what those linebackers do, they're not afraid to get physical with tight ends, with wide receivers to reroute them as well. You guys moving to that front seven, you guys brought in somebody in the trade deadline. You look at two of these pieces that are part of that rotation: George Karlaftis, Felix Anduke Uzama. You brought in Joshua Uche. Mike Donna is kind of the starter there, but they do rotate him a lot too. Just talk about the ends here, what they bring to the table, and what part they play in this run defense. And get some. Now you kind of look at the sacks haven't necessarily been outstanding for them. That's something where I think the Chiefs would like to see them kind of get to the quarterback and really affect him a little bit more. Only 12 sacks on the season as a whole for the Chiefs. A lot of them coming from, I'll give you a hint, Chris Jones, but Karlaftis has 3 of them himself. But then, nobody else kind of behind him has stepped up as far as outside linebacker. Felix has 1, Mike's got half. What's going on with that edge room outside of Karlaftis? Who's bringing the heat?
Yeah, so I think a lot of they're still getting pressure, but you would like to close, I think, on some of those. And also, like I hinted at, the getting the ball out quickly and taking advantage of the horizontal space instead of vertically has kind of alleviated some of that. But man, Chris Jones, like I said, still as good as ever. Karlaftis, though, if you're talking about the outside, he got off to a little bit of a slow start to the year. Last season kind of quote unquote broke out and had like the double-digit sacks, looked pretty good, played at a fringe Pro Bowl level, probably just a little bit below that. This year didn't look quite as good coming out of the gate. The past few weeks, though, has really been ramping up, which is weird because it's coincided with Mike Dana being injured, and he might come back this week. He was limited both days with a pectoral injury. We'll probably get to that here in a second. But he's been okay. Felix, they spent a first-round pick on him when the draft was in Kansas City. It was a local kid. It was a really good story. Didn't do anything his rookie year. Wasn't a factor whatsoever. This year has kind of been better, and I think he's held his own against the run, but still waiting for some of that pass rush production. They have Malik Herring as like a complimentary guy who's okay, can set the edge, do all that good stuff. They needed Charles Omenihu to come back healthy, and that's still a couple weeks away, I think, from the torn ACL. Getting Joshua Uche, though, a guy that can win quickly, a guy that's explosive. Like I think the long-term vision for a guy like FAU, who's not a Steve Spagnuolo defensive end. Really, he prefers those bigger, stout, like edge setting, run defending power guys, like Karlaftis, pretty much. The long-term thing for FAU, they want him to be a player like Joshua Uche, and I don't think he's going to be that caliber because he's one of the better pass rushers over the past few years. But getting that for a 2026 sixth-round pick is ridiculous. I was like, they can't keep getting away with this. They just, I don't know. He's going to help a lot, and I think this isn't a slight to FAU, but if you're taking him off the field a little bit more and taking Herring off the field a little bit more, getting Dana back out there, getting Uche, who's a more established pass rusher, I think that's going to help.
Yeah, they didn't even use Uche the right way last year with the Patriots. I don't know if he was in the doghouse or something, but I mean, you look at the season prior to 11 and a half sacks, just super quick off the edge, and he can do a lot of stuff that cause, even if he doesn't get the sack, he still causes a lot of nightmares for defenders. Let's talk about Chris Jones. Then I got to go back because there's another addition to this team that I completely forgot to ask about on offense. And then we'll get into the injury report, get the heck out of here. So question, Chris Jones, is this guy real? Are we all just living in a simulation? Usually as you get older as a defensive lineman, things don't work the same. And I know he's only 30, but I mean, this guy is on another level right now. He's arguably the favorite to win and probably should be the favorite to win defensive player of the year. He's on another level. They've got a couple guys behind him. Derek Nundy's been there forever. I feel like Mike Pennell's been there for a while too. Tershawn Wharton's his running mate. And then they got Marlon Tuipulotu, who I think they just drafted a few years ago, if I'm not mistaken. You'll correct me though. Let's talk about that defensive tackle rooms led by Chris Jones. The ability to shut things down in the run game, and just talk to me about these guys here.
I'm going to lead with really the only negative thing I can think about for the defensive tackle room, and that's why I'm so surprised about the run defense. Is Turk Wharton is a converted defensive end who is not really big enough to be like a Derek Nundy's 300 plus pounds. He's always been the run stuffer. He had a tricep thing that cut last season short and then limited his off season. I never thought in a billion years that Steve Spagnuolo would take him off the field for anybody, let alone Turk Wharton. That's exactly what he did. And Tershawn's been awesome so far, rushing the passer career season by every stretch of the imagination. You pair him, not a great run defender typically, with Chris Jones, who, as awesome as he is against the pass, he's not a very good run defender. He's a freelancer in that. He's not very gap sound, and you take the trade-off a billion times out of a billion. But they still have been great at being disciplined for the most part, not allowing chunk runs, just really good there. And Jones, he wins as quick as defensive ends do. He's as fast as some of them. He's more powerful than all of them. He has all the moves in the bag. Spagnuolo will put him at defensive end when the matchups are favorable. So you combine the insane talent, the ability to close games, like his conditioning is nuts. I think for a guy that big, with a defensive coordinator that's, again, that much of a sicko, you're getting probably the best defensive tackle in the league. Like, he's playing at peak Aaron Donald type levels right now. Like, for the past couple of years has been insane from him. And Wharton's been great. Noddy, I think the more you're playing those guys, the less you have to rely on a Derek Noddy, a Mike Pennell, who's like the seasoned veteran, making good plays. And Tuipulotu, they picked up prior to the season. He hasn't been playing at all. He's just been a healthy scratch on the roster. That's how much depth they have. So you're weaponizing Noddy in specific situations. You're getting Mike Pennell on a pitch count when he's motivated, which is good. And Chris Jones is kind of the leading guy there. And he, again, has been career year, if not, right up there with what he has been the past couple of years.
Nice. Yeah. There's we love sickos here on the Sick Podcast. We definitely do. Just not this week. Not this week. Yep. On the Bucs side, at least on the Bucs side. So let me just jump into one more of our sponsors. We'll get into the injury report. I got one more question about this offense that I don't know how I forgot to ask about it before, but we're going to talk about him. And then we'll get into keys to the game in our score predictions. So big shout out to our sponsor, Mosley Heating and Air. When Florida heat hits hard, trust Mosley Heating and Air to keep you cool and comfortable. With over 25 years of experience, their family-owned business knows what it takes to keep your home's HVAC system running smoothly. Need a repair, a new system, or a maintenance plan? They've got you covered. Call Mosley Heating and Air at 813-230-3742 or visit mosleyheatingandair.com. Mosley Heating and Air, where comfort meets reliability. Starting to cool off. It's still a little hot. I mean, it's 85 degrees today, but it's starting to cool off a little bit at night when we get this cold plunge. Make sure you guys are reaching out to them if you're in the Tampa area. Get yourself on a service plan. Get it serviced. And, that's when you want to do in those cold weather months so it doesn't break down on you during the hot weather months. So shout out to them. DeAndre Hopkins. Casual,
decent player. He's okay.
Just casually forgot about DeAndre Hopkins in that trade acquisition. What's he going to bring to this offense? I know you don't know because you haven't seen it yet because they got him in a bye week. But what are you expecting him to bring to this offensive system? That again, they're down several of their wide receivers: Hollywood Brown, Rashee Rice. They're looking, at this point, Xavier Worthy, their first round pick, is their pseudo number one with Juju Smith-Schuster still on the mend and Justin Watson and Mecole Hardman, who's bounced around. So tell me what DeAndre Hopkins is going to bring to this offense.
Yeah, so you hit the nail on the head that I don't think anyone has the best guess. Now, they did get a bigger sample of that than I thought against the Raiders. He had 23 snaps, and I would have said he'd play, 8 to 10 and just get a couple targets and call it a day. But had 2 catches. Mahomes overthrew him on a corner route that was beautifully executed. He got open on Travis Kelce's touchdown, so he could have had a score there. There was a 3rd down conversion where Mahomes gave Worthy a chance to make a play, and he didn't, and Hopkins was open. So he could have easily had, 4 for 70 and a score. Like the box score didn't really, I think, depict the level of game he had. And I think he's like a wide receiver version of Travis Kelce, except he also makes contested catches, and the comparison of knowing exactly where to be against zone, being just crafty enough, despite not being the best athlete, to separate against man, building the chemistry with Mahomes. Like I think long-term, it's going to help quite a bit. And it wouldn't surprise me if he had a really solid half a season and then re-signed in Kansas City for like the twilight of his career, maybe. But looked really good, better than I thought he would early on. And Andy Reid said this week that workload's going to expand. So maybe he's going to play 30, 35 snaps or something, approach that 50% mark on offense. And nothing but really solid things to say about the person so far, and definitely how he's looked on the field.
Yeah, so I mean that's the biggest thing. Kind of you get what you get in a small sample size, but to see that increase, that's when you really know what you have. So and know what he can bring to the offense. So hopefully not this week. Hopefully it's later down the line. But I think D-Hop still has some game left. I don't know if it's if it's what he used
definitely
to bring.
Not peak. Yeah.
But I mean he's definitely. So let's just jump into this injury report, kind of the highlights and lowlights. Levante David did not practice again today with an ankle chest injury. That's a big one to watch. If he can't go, JJ Russell would step in his place. Mike Evans, obviously, he's out until after the bye. Greg Gaines is dealing with a calf. He missed last week's game. He did not practice the last 2 days. Buck Irving's on this thing where he's not going to practice until Friday. It'll be limited, or Saturday in this case, and then play on Sunday. So he should be good to go. Sterling Shepard dealing with a hamstring is not practicing is not a good sign either. Obviously, Mike is out with a hamstring. We know how difficult hamstrings can be. So that's one that you're really kind of stressing at this point, because any receivers would be Rakim Jarrett, Sterling Shepard, Trey Palmer, Ryan Miller, and you'd probably bring up a guy like Tanner Canoe from the practice squad just to give you 5 healthy bodies out there. But that's the biggest one to watch for Saturday's practice, to see if he does practice or not. Tyke Smith ramping up in concussion protocol. But again, went from limited to full. It means absolutely nothing if he's not cleared by Sunday. Ben Bredesen's dealing with a shoulder. He's limited. He'll be good to go. Evan Deckers is coming off of a hamstring injury that he suffered, was on IR, got activated, full participant the last 2 days. Wouldn't be surprised to see him activated off that. Zach trying to cut. They might give him another week just to give him another week because they can. Will Golson's been banged up with a knee and other injuries, but he's limited. He'll play. And the biggest one today jumped on there. Antoine Winfield Jr., who dealt with a foot injury and missed 4 games of the season, 5 games of the season. He was on their foot with a limited. He looks like he's good to go there. No real setbacks for him, I'm envisioning. How are you guys looking health-wise?
All things considered, I mean, minus the guys that are obviously out for longer term. On the report this week, Najee Johnson, the cornerback 2, is still dealing with concussion protocol, and he went from did not practice on Thursday to limited on Friday. Again, kind of a coin flip, I would say, if he's going to be ready to go by Sunday. Juju's not going to play this week, definitely with the hamstring. He hasn't been practicing, still kind of a week-to-week thing with him. Kareem Hunt, last week it was a hip. He was limited day 1, then full participant the rest of the week. This week it's a quad, limited participant day 1, probably full the rest of the week. And Mike Dana with the pec, he's had a calf, he's had a quad. Now the pec has missed a couple games in a row, limited both days. I think if they didn't bring in Joshua Uche, that maybe he would be out there and they'd push a little bit harder, but it would not surprise me if he's limited on Saturday. The Chiefs just say, okay, he's not going to play. We need, 1 more week with that. And then rookie tight end Jared Wiley popped up on the report with a knee. On Friday, he was limited. So nothing groundbreaking, I think. But if Dana's not out there, Juju obviously not going to be out there. And then if Najee Johnson can't play in time, again, that second cornerback, whoever that matchup is, I think could have an increased chance of a pretty big day.
Okay, we'll get into our key matchups. Okay, and then we'll get into our score predictions, and we'll get you out of here. If the Chiefs win, they did what on offense?
Keep committing to run the ball. I think Tampa's like 30th in average yards per carry, and that doesn't mean a ton for Hunt. He's not going to break off chunk plays anyway. But take care of that, and then I think really take advantage of the pass defense and just keep getting Hopkins involved, have another big Kelce game, kind of repeat the game plan that they had for the Raiders, I would say, and do that and take care of the football. And I think that's a big key for Tampa as well. But play mistake-free football on offense and then kind of let everything fall into place on defense.
If the Bucs win, they did what on offense? Exploited what?
Got to be take care of the ball. I love Baker Mayfield so much. I also worry sometimes that he's going to, go on one of those Baker heaters where you're going to get 4 touchdowns and 3 picks or something like that, or the inverse of that, and have a crazy one. But take care of the football. The Chiefs are very good at responding from turnovers by the other team by punching it in the end zone on offense. And then, man, it's tough. Take care of the football offensively. Defensively, just find a way to keep the Chiefs passing offense in check. And I guess I would say back to offense involved Cade Otton quite a bit. I'm still not sold on the Chiefs against tight ends. It hasn't been something that's improved a ton. I think really one of the stronger options in the passing game right now, which sucks because of the injuries, but especially if Sterling Shepard can't get out there, attack him, maybe run a little bit, see how it works. If Irving is out there, I think a change of pace, kind of the duo could be fun. So number 1, no turnovers, keep the ball, possession of the ball, run it down the field, and then involve Cade Otton. And I think a lot of it's just offensively. The Chiefs offense might shoot itself in the foot without anything the defense does. The Bucs just need to keep trying to air it out and let the chips fall where they may, which they've been, pretty good at this year. Top 5 in passing yards and touchdowns.
Yeah, the Bucs actually had surprising success running on the Ravens. They totaled up 125 yards on the ground when they were just letting up 59 yards per game. So I think they will be committed to running. If they do that, what kind of running style do you think would be more successful? Is it Rashad White's kind of patient slash and go? Is it Bucky's kind of, joystick, one cut, make a defender miss type deal? Or Sean Tucker with his kind of just power kind of bowl through your running style? And
so, yeah, diving into the matchup this week, I saw that last week they had a season low in outside zone and mixed in like more trap and power concepts, but on the year, really, really good at inside zone, tremendous at counter. Like I would do anything that keeps the Chiefs defense moving again, horizontally. Like if you can stretch the field, obviously vertically, you want to pass the ball down the field, but if you're going to run, don't go up the middle, which goes against conventional wisdom because Chris Jones is a freelancer and Turk Wharton's smaller. I would try to mix in motion as much as I can, kind of run. I hate to say gimmick because that carries kind of a negative connotation, but
Yeah.
run a little bit of a gimmick run game, maybe run an extension of that. If you can get some screens out there, keep the defense on their toes and diversify that. Cause I think if you're just going to run it, behind the center right guard 20 times that it's not going to be quite enough.
Oh yeah, they're definitely gonna get the screen game going. Definitely for sure. The success Rashad Bucky have had
Yep.
on there, you definitely see that. All right, last thing, score predictions. What do you got?
I'm notoriously terrible at these. If I had a betting record for score predictions, I would be clearly in the negative, but I'll go 27-21 Chiefs. I think I don't feel great about that. I respect the heck out of Tampa, and I love watching Baker play. I'm really, a little ticked that Evans and Godwin aren't out there because I think this could be like shades of 2018 Chiefs Rams, that like Mexico City game that wasn't actually in Mexico City, where both teams scored a billion points. There was madness with turnovers. Both quarterbacks were, on heaters, and on paper that would have been a really fun matchup. But I think the Chiefs offense just continues playing the boring brand of football. Hopkins gets a little bit more involved. Kelce continues to look good. Maybe lean a little bit less on the run game this week. Then Tampa still gets theirs against the Chiefs, so to speak. I think that, like you said, the screen game, getting the running backs involved, getting the tight ends involved, kind of by necessity, just because of the injuries. But in the end, they're probably going to be a Mike Evans short of a win, a Chris Godwin short of a win, and that's just kind of where they're at right now.
Yeah, I've got 27-24
Okay.
Chiefs, and I just think the Bucs again are going to put 24 points up on the board. You should win games when you can do that. The defense, I think the Bucs will even hold a lead at some point.
I can see that. Yep.
And then defense, I mean, second quarter collapses have plagued this team. Collapses in the third quarter have plagued this team. And the Chiefs come roaring back, and maybe the Bucs had the ball at the end, but again, just not enough time. Too little, too late has been the theme of the last two games. Probably make it this game. Although I do feel, again, 27-24, I'm not picking the Chiefs to blow this team out of the water. I think it's going to be closer than some people think because both of these teams have their issues. Even if I think both teams play to their full strength of their offense, I still think both of them are limited. Yeah. So, that's so weird to say about a Chiefs team that's 7-0, right?
Yeah, it's been it's the same thing as last year. It's like the process has objectively not been what it should be, yet they keep freaking finding ways to win. It's like if I was not covering the team, and obviously those emotions are different from like fanning out over the team, but like if I was a fan of an opposing squad, I would be so infuriated. But like on paper, they have Mahomes, they have Kelce, they don't have anybody else. The defense does not have a bunch of household names. They've had this extensive run. Like, aside from Jones and McDuffie, Mahomes, Kelce, like Creed Humphrey, I guess you can throw in there. It's not a team that on paper blows you out of the water. You watch them play and you're like, there's nothing insane about this team. But I guess the invaluable trait of knowing how to close games, knowing how to win games, I guess they're the best in the league at that. And that, it's probably worth, I guess, a Super Bowl and some games in the regular season along the way.
Right. So should be a fun game. I'm excited. The weather could be bad. We're monitoring that. Definitely take a look at that. We know it's going to be loud, and we know weather doesn't matter because we saw these guys out there against the Dolphins freezing their behinds off. So the Chiefs fans will be out there. They'll be loud. They'll be proud. They'll be supporting. Before we get out of here, Jordan, go ahead and promote yourself. Where can people find your work if they want to stay tuned with what you're doing?
Yeah, I'm on the Twitterverse or Xverse or whatever you want to call it now. At Foote Noted, FOOTE Noted, and then Kansas City Chiefs on SI. Lots of daily coverage on that. Just like you, CJ, lots of trying to keep up with a crazy team, man, that you don't know any day what's going to happen. But always along for the ride and always a lot of fun. So thanks for having me on, man.
Absolutely. Guys, that's going to do it for us. Thank you to Jordan, our guest here. That's going to do it for us here over at Pirate Parlay on the Sick Podcast Network. We'll be live post-game, probably post-game. We'll see. It's going to be late, so we might just go the next day. But we'll be live and breaking this down at some point. Appreciate everyone in the chat room. Like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Appreciate our sponsors. Appreciate Jordan. That's going to do it for here. For us over at Pirate Parlay Podcast on the Sick Podcast Network, I'm your host, JC Allen, saying out. Peace.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Pirate Parlay on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.